I also want to help thank BlockShow for putting this together and making a really nice images of both of us. I think both me and Nouriel look really young here, right? But I think you heard Nouriel on the main stage. He spent 30 minutes explaining his point of view, and I wanted to rebuttal most of it, right? So I think that, sorry? So, go for it. All right. So the main issue about cryptocurrencies is that they're the only non-correlated asset today that does not rise and go down with the US dollar, right? Every other asset, most bonds, most stocks, most real estate is denominated in the dollar. And the dollar itself is the biggest bubble that was ever created in the history of humankind. I thought Nouriel is saying it's crypto. Crypto in total at the high was 800 billion. All of that, if it disappeared in a second, would not get a single bank out of business. Not a single institution would be affected. None of you will be affected. Okay? So in 2008, just in the United States, over $22 trillion worth of value was disappeared like this, and Nouriel is famous for predicting that, right? So my point is that crypto is made for the people, by the people, and it's the first time in history that people took the power in their hands and said, we're not going to give it to some politician, we're not going to give it to the government or to any central bank, and we're going to have an independent currency that we control that has a limited supply that's in the best interest of the people. Now, Bitcoin has gone up and down many times. It was down 90% about 7 times in the past, in the last 10 years. So this is nothing new. But the point is the volatility in crypto is something that is inherent to the fact that we just don't have enough users. If we had several hundred million users, the volatility would not be there. I want to remind everybody that the US dollar, right, was started as the coin, right? It was first minted as a coin, started as an illegal currency, minted by 13 colonies against the wishes of the United Kingdom. And they sent a whole bunch of army people to stop us from doing that. And today it's the reserve currency of the planet. So going from illegal coin to a reserve currency of the planet, does that sound familiar? Anyone here is thinking that crypto is going to do that? So I think we're at the early innings of this process. So I'll stop here and let Nouriel respond.
Good to be on stage with you, Alex, again, but I would beg to disagree with you. The usual way in which economists define an asset bubble is when there is a significant gap between the market value of an asset and its fundamental value. And in the case of cryptocurrencies, if you had to draw a chart, you would see that the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies rose more than other historical bubbles, more than Tulip bubble, more than the South Sea bubble, more than the Mississippi bubble, more than even the tech bubble. And since then, like in any other example of a bubble, it has collapsed. And as I pointed out in my speech before, the price of Bitcoin has fallen already 70% from the peak. Went to 20, now it's closer to 6. And that's the good case because the value of the average other cryptocurrency has fallen by more than 90%. So in that sense, it is a bubble. And I'm an expert of financial crisis. I was one of the few economists who predicted the global financial crisis. And certainly there is frothiness in many markets. You could argue there's frothiness in equity prices, in credit, in private equity, in real estate, in government bonds. But it's frothiness. You have nothing that goes up in value the way Bitcoin and other currency did and has fallen in value by over 90%. So these were bubble and is a bubble that's burst. As I also pointed out, the idea you're going to replace fiat currencies with crypto is kind of nonsense. These cryptocurrencies are not a unit of account. Nothing is priced in Bitcoin or other currencies. It's not a means of payment, and it's not going to become a means of payment because it's not scalable. And it's not a stable store of value. So talking about them as cryptocurrencies is a misnomer. These are not currencies by any standard. And as I pointed out, they're not scalable, they're not decentralized, they're not secure. So they don't have the feature that makes something a reliable currency. And the fact that it has burst and the value of most of them has fallen more than 90% from the peak proves also that they are not like the beginning of the internet or other successful technology. Transaction costs are not falling, are rising. Usage is not increasing. Transactions are falling. So by any measure, this is not a viable new technology.
So I'm willing to bet my net worth, which is substantial, that more money was stolen from banks than from cryptocurrencies in the last 10 years. Anyone here is willing to join me? You know, I mean, saying that crypto is not safe, you know, Bank of America and Citibank and JP Morgan all got hacked multiple times in the last several years. The last theft was over $200 million, you know, that they're willing to admit. What about all the times that we didn't even know about it, right? So the fact that we measured currencies in the past with these three elements that Nouriel is talking about has nothing to do with how we're going to measure things going forward. And you have to remember that the only reason that we are believing in a piece of cotton called the US dollar, that it's worth $20 or $30 or $100 or whatever, is because we all believe it. So, you know, behind the dollar, behind every dollar, there's more than $1 worth of debt. Okay, so the problem is that you have $22 trillion and rising of debt, and all of us are effectively consuming more than we're producing. And any economy, any empire in history that consumed more than it produced has collapsed on itself. Okay, and the fact that the United States has been doing this for whatever over 200 years means nothing. The Roman Empire lasted for 1600 years. Right? And it has its own coin and unit of count and everything else, right? And then all of that just disappeared and collapsed on itself. So the beauty of cryptocurrency is that it has, the only thing that it's unique at is they have limited supply. And no government, no person, not God can come and say, hey, I'm just going to print another 20 million Bitcoins, right? So because we distrust the existing system, that does not provide equal distribution, right? Like Nouriel was talking on stage about distribution. The current financial system we live in does not provide equal distribution of what you contribute versus what you get paid for. And the 1% at the top gets to keep most of the money. Actually, the 100 richest people on the planet today control about 40% of all the net worth of the entire planet. I mean, it's just crazy. So I think the opportunity here is to create value and measure value based on a completely independent system, and that's really where cryptocurrencies are going to thrive. That's what we did not see yet, and that's where the killer app is going to come from. It's not going to be all these ICOs. You mentioned about ICOs, and I agree. I think 90% of these ICOs are going to fail because they're not solving any problem that is needed. So the question is what the killer app is. From the entire internet, which raised hundreds of billions of dollars, we only got 5 great companies. FANG, you heard about the FANG? Or 4 of them, right? Google, Facebook, and so on. So we don't need 100 or 1,000 success stories. We just need 5. So out of all these companies here and all the companies that all of us invested in, we just need 5 success stories.
I beg to disagree on a number of dimensions. First of all, I think there's a misconception that argues that asset and credit bubbles or financial crises occur because of the action of central banks. The reality is that before central bank existed, there were asset bubbles like Tulip Mania, the South Sea bubble, Mississippi, and dozens of others. And the economic effects of these collapse of bubbles were much more severe and virulent. Depressions, deflation, totally wiping out. And central banks were created actually, one, to smooth the business cycle. Business cycles now are less virulent than they used to be. We don't have a Great Depression. And even financial crises can be addressed better because you have deposit insurance, you have lender last resort support, and other ways in which you can backstop the financial system. So economic system and financial system have become more stable when you have created central banks and fiat currencies than they were before. And a world in which there were no fiat currency and there were only private money, like before central bank, will be a world in which financial crises and bubble are more severe and more virulent than a world in which there is a central bank. So I think that the historical evidence suggests that. The point about the financial system is that, there are problems. Banks may be hacked, but if I'm using traditional banking system, I use fiat currency, I use my bank account, I use credit card, I use Venmo, I use PayPal, I use WeChat. I'm safe. I have deposit insurance. I have banks that have reputation. I have a lend of last resort support coming from the central bank. I have institutions that are too big to fail. They're going to be bailed out because otherwise there is a systemic problem. And whenever somebody's hacking my credit card, I make a phone call and I'm 100% whole on my accounts. I never lost a penny in my life out of it, and nobody else lost it. So I pay a small fee, but it's a fee that is worth paying as an insurance against somebody ripping me off. In the space of crypto, there is zero security, okay? All these exchanges have been hacked, both the centralized one and the decentralized one. 51% attack are occurring widely everywhere across the board. If you have your wallet on your laptop, on your phone, on your tablet, on whatever, anybody can hack you. And if they hack you, your money is gone forever, and there is no way you can find it. And the only way to be safe is to put your stuff into cold storage somewhere. That means that you cannot use it for any transaction. And there's a whole industry about essentially storing in a cave your money so that you cannot use it otherwise. So there have been thousands of hacks. People have lost their money. It's not safe. There is no deposit insurance. There is no lender of last resort. There's nobody backstopping you if somebody steals your money and it's gone forever. So do I pay a fee for those services and the insurance of using a banking system or a credit card or fiat currency? Yes. I'd rather pay 1-2% for my credit card and I make a call and I'm made whole than having anything in crypto and once somebody's stealing it, it's gone and gone forever. Well, there's a reason why we have trusted institution, we have deposit insurance, we have a lender of last resort, and we have ways to backstop the financial system. Something that in this crypto case and space does not exist at all.
Well, first you have to buy a few coins for them to steal it from you. So you mentioned you don't have any coins, so, you know.
Well, I would never buy.
I'll send you a coin.
I would
Open
never.
a wallet. Download a Celsius wallet. I'll send you a free coin.
I'm not talking my book, right? I'm not short or long in the crypto space.
Buy a coin.
Unlike everybody else,
do you have any dollars in your wallet?
Unlike everybody else with self-interest in this space,
do you have any dollars
I have
in your wallet?
absolutely
You're
no
talking the book of
financial
dollars.
interest. I have no financial interest.
Come on.
So unlike you and everybody else,
right,
if you go to the moon or to zero, I'm not going to make money. I'm not going to lose money.
You took your time. Let me respond. Okay? Let me respond. So I think you're missing the point, okay? The issue is not how stable the current system is. The issue is that the current system does not work for 7 billion people on this planet, right? Does it work for anybody here? I mean, the point is that and again, look, I'm the rich fuck who ran 2 public companies, okay? Who made millions of dollars. And I finally saw the light and realized that most of the people on this planet are not going to survive in this environment. Okay? You cannot have a system in which only the people who are very well connected on Wall Street or have managed to open a company that is worth $1 billion can actually pay for their bills and send their kids to private school and do everything else. Okay? The current wealth distribution system, which is based on the financial system, which is based on all the banks, based on the Fed, all of that system is making sure that 95% of the people stay at the bottom of the pyramid. Okay? And crypto is here to reinvent that. Crypto is here.
That's all talk. It's
okay,
vaporware.
All right. Well,
it's all self-interest talk.
You're obviously not helping it.
You're not helping it. Democratize finance.
So let me. Can I give you one example? Let me give you one example. Okay. I founded 7 companies. I raised $1 billion from VCs. I returned $3 billion in capital to the VCs. Okay. I made the VCs a lot of money. I made myself a lot of money too. Okay. But most of the people who worked for me in my last company before Celsius, I ran Novotel Wireless, public company. You can look it up, 1,400 employees, $400 million in revenues, public company on NASDAQ, okay? Most of the people that worked for me, 1,400 people, have made 1/300 of what I made. 1/300. And that's the average person. He makes 1/300 of what the CEO makes. Is that fair? Did I contribute 300 times more than the average employee? I didn't. So let's take specifics. You want to talk specifics? So again, I founded Arbanet Communications, went public in 2004 with worth over $1 billion. Do you know who made all the money? The VCs, the bankers, the underwriters, and so on. Let's talk about Ethereum. Ethereum minted more millionaires than any company in history. Ethereum minted more millionaires than any company in history. So who you want to side up with? The guys that basically, even though you're saying Bitcoin is so concentrated, yes, it's concentrated, but it still made more millionaires than anyone else in history. So the question is, who is participating? Are the people at the top of the pyramid or the people of the bottom of the pyramid? This is the first time in history, and I want you to answer this point. First time in history that the average Joe got in on a big next thing before the institutions, before the VCs, before the banks, and that's why they hate it. That's why they don't want to be part of it.
Sorry, it's total nonsense, okay? It's total nonsense because...
Which part? Which part?
No, okay. The concentration of wealth in crypto is worse than North Korea. The Gini
But it's
coefficient.
all with the bottom of the pyramid.
Wait.
It's
the
all
Gini,
with the bottom of
Gini
the pyramid.
coefficient in US is 0.5. In North Korea is
You can
0.86.
say numbers.
In
Not a single
Bitcoin is
VC.
0.88.
Come on,
okay?
Nouriel.
There's more
Not-
concentration of
Nouriel,
wealth.
not
It's
a
all
single
self-interest.
VC, not a single bank.
Those who are whales.
But who's holding it?
Let me speak, okay?
Who is
You
holding
spoke
it?
now. Let me speak, okay? Okay? There is more concentration of wealth in the crypto than anywhere in the world. There's a bunch of people who talk about democratization of finance, and it's all bullshit. There are actually paper billionaires, because they're not even billionaires, because if they were trying to sell their Bitcoin or Ethereum, the price would collapse, and therefore all that billions is fake wealth to begin with. The value of the average cryptocurrency already fallen 90% from the peak, okay, it was a bubble. And there is absolutely no democratization of anything. There's centralization of exchanges, centralization of miners, centralization of crypto wealth, centralization of developers. It's the most concentrated amount of centralized wealth in the history of humanity. Worse than VCs,
okay.
worse than Wall Street. It's all
survey.
bullshit. It's all self-interest
Okay,
people
bullshit.
who pretend to democratizing finance, who are enriching themselves, who are scamming investors, literally billions of ICOs that were total scam. 81% of them were a scam
All
to
right.
pay for
So
your
let's
vacation
ask- let's
in
ask-
Ibiza, okay?
let's
That's
ask-
what they use the money.
Right.
They take the money and they disappear. And they call it democratization of finance. It's a joke.
But you're not answering the question. So, I'm presenting at 1:30 on the main stage. I have like 40
Where is
slides.
the democracy of what?
Okay, so let's ask, how many of you here hold cryptocurrencies? Okay, great. How many of you work for a major Wall Street bank or a financial institution? Okay, like two guys. So most of the money, that's my point. My point
How
is...
many of you lost
my
90%
point
of
is-
your crypto wealth since the
Okay,
beginning of
that's
the year?
not the point. The point
No,
is
it's
that
not the
all the
point.
wealth created... that
90% collapse
all
of the price.
Nouriel, all the wealth created went to the average Joe, not to the Wall Street fucks. Okay?
It's not the average
That's all
Joe.
I can tell you.
It's a
okay?
highly concentrated number of people.
By
who are
the
holding
people
this
that
wealth.
don't have anything, not by the people that already have everything.
It's fake wealth.
You're missing the
price
point.
of this stuff has already
You're
fallen
missing the point.
90%.
It doesn't
It's not
matter
wealth.
if
If anybody wanted to cash
it used
into
to
what?
be 2
into
cents.
fiat, this wealth, the price would collapse to zero.
Nouriel,
so it's
it
not
used to be
real
2
wealth.
cents.
It's fake
It's the
wealth.
best return of any investment in the history of mankind. And that's
90% down.
Doesn't
this
matter.
year?
It's still
Huh?
it's
What?
still better than the U.S.
Still
dollar.
better than what?
Listen, the
The US stock market has gone up by 400% since
I'll
March
show-
of
I have a-
2009.
I have-
400%.
Okay.
Okay.
I will plot. Exactly. Bitcoin is up 60,000%. The U.S. dollar lost 99.99% of its value against the Bitcoin. If you plot those two together, and I have a slide about that, the U.S. dollar lost 99.99% of its value in the last
Bitcoin was
10
at
years
20,000.
agago
Now it's at
Bitcoin.
6. And it's
still,
going to go to zero.
Right now,
it's going to go to zero.
Right now,
It's lost 70%. Every other currency,
right
crypto,
now.
has lost more than 90%.
I'm talking about
Come on.
at 6,000.
It's been an apocalypse for crypto this year. Come on.
I don't see
mean,
an apocalypse. I'm
any-
buying with
any-
both hands. Anyone here buying more? Thank you. Now, let me talk stats, okay? So, Coinbase just released numbers. Blockchain the company Blockchain, it's a wallet, just released numbers. All these guys are signing up 50,000 new users every day, right? They were signing them at the peak. In December, they were signing up 50 to 60,000. They're still signing up 50,000 people every day. So the price manipulation, I agree with you, there's manipulation. I agree with you. There's a lot of bad stuff happening, but only we can clean it up, okay? All the people here have to remove their coins from exchanges, from decentralized exchanges. I agree with you on that point. At least we agree on a few things. And bring the power back to the people. But the point is that you cannot have a rising tide of millions of people joining crypto, okay, and not have prices go up. So right now, when you see prices crashing, that's all manipulation. But when you're seeing million people joining, you know that the prices are going to hit new highs. And that's the most important thing. So right now, yes, it's at the low. In 2008, the stock market crashed 60%. So what? That was an excellent time to buy. The best time to buy when you were celebrating how you called the bottom of the market, okay? So the opportunity is, you have to be careful. There are scams everywhere. I agree about that. But if you invest in Bitcoin, you invest in the safe coins, you're going to be doing just fine.
The 81% of all ICOs are scam. 11% of them already failed or are dead. The remaining 8%, the top 10 that are traded, have lost 92% of their value from the peak. The entire crypto space is collapsing. Number of users is flattening out. Transactions have collapsed. The transaction costs have gone through the roof if you measure it by revenue of miners per transaction. This is not the internet. This is not the stock market. This was a bubble. It reached the peak at the end of last year. Now it's collapsing. And the reality is that there is no world in which you can have 2,000 separate currencies. There's one reason why we have one currency for every economic system. It's a unit of account, is a means of payment, is a stable store of value. None of this cryptocurrency is a unit of account. Nothing is measured in Bitcoin.
You don't need any of that.
Can you pay for this conference Bitcoin? No. It's not used as a means of payment. It's not a stable store of value. It doesn't have the definition of what a money should be. Calling them cryptocurrencies is a joke. And the fact that their prices collapsed more than 90% is the proof of it.
All right, so
I can make a bet of you that a year from now, the average cryptocurrency was already fallen by 90%, is going to fall another 90%.
Right,
I'll take a bet on it today.
How much you want to put on?
Okay.
How much are we putting on?
It's glory. It's not about money in my case.
All right. I'm putting a Bitcoin. Let's do one Bitcoin.
Sorry, I don't get paid in something as no value.
I'll do 100
value
Bitcoin.
Goes to zero.
Right now, I'll do how about 1,000 Bitcoin?
I'm not interested in Bitcoins.
Celsius did an ICO 4 months ago. We raised $52 million. We are ahead of every delivery point we promised. We're performing better than both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, our token is performing better than Bitcoin or Ethereum. But let me give you a great example. Okay, I'm going to talk about a specific company. Let's see if you can guess who it is. The company was started in 1995. 99, it went to $120. By 2002, it was trading at $8. You could have bought it at $8. It's now at $1,900. Anyone knows what I'm talking about? Amazon. You could have bought Amazon at $8 in 2002. Was there ever any bad time to buy Amazon? Any time in the since 1995, there was ever a bad time to buy Amazon. That's how you have to think about the cryptocurrencies. If you really believe that power is going to go to the people, and this is a global phenomena, and hundreds of millions of people are going to join this, well, look, then you have to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and Stellar and all the other guys that are great projects in the space. When I invented Voice over IP in 1994, I wrote the protocols, I wrote the patents. I went to AT&T and showed them the system, and they laughed at me. They're like, "This will never work. The internet is just a joke. You know, it's a scam. It's just a tiny little thing that's good for porn and for all kind of other bad things." Everything Nouriel is saying, I heard from AT&T in 1995. You know, by 2000, they were my largest customer, and by 2004, we went public and had over $1 billion market cap. AT&T in 95 used to make all of its profit from voice. It cost $3. Anyone here used to pay $2 or $3 a minute to call anywhere in the world? All the old guys picking up their hand. You know, the young kids don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? Now you pay nothing for it. But even if you pay nothing for it, half of the people in the world still don't use Voice over IP. So the fact that people don't use it doesn't mean it's not good for you. You know, it just takes a long time. It took 25 years for Voice over IP to touch half of the population in the world. Now Bitcoin is 10 years old, okay? And yes, we have slow adoption. I agree with that. It's slow adoption because we don't have a killer app. Okay, but lending and borrowing, which is what Celsius provides, is a killer app, and we think that that's what's going to bring the next 100 million people into crypto.
There is a huge difference between crypto and the internet. At the beginning of the internet, I was among the first user of it. There were plenty of killer apps. Thousands of people, millions of people, billions of people started to use email. Then they started using web browsers, and there were websites of one sort or another. So it was an escalating adoption of it. There is nothing similar. There is nothing like Amazon. There is nothing like Google. There is nothing like Apple. There is nothing like Netflix. There is nothing. After a decade of crypto, what do you have? 2,000 cryptocurrencies that are all collapsing. They're collapsing. Wait, they're collapsing in price, more than 90% from the peak. And
so did the internet. I just gave you the example.
What are the apps? What are the apps?
From $100 to $8.
What are the distributed apps?
From 100 to
75% of them are crypto kitties, okay? Crypto kitties, Ponzi schemes,
I love crypto
pyramid
kitties.
schemes, and casino games. And the rest of it is what? These decentralized exchanges that have no liquidity, that nobody's using for what? Exchanging coins that have no value. So
Amazon
after a decade, the only thing that you have to show is crypto kitties, Ponzi schemes, casino games. That's all you have to show.
That was
after
the internet
a decade,
in 2000.
a year into the internet, you had web browsers, you had web applications, you have email, you had billions of people starting to use it. There's absolutely
the internet
complete
created
difference.
the five
there are
most
plenty.
yeah.
There are plenty of technologies that are bullshit. They fail. Comparing crypto with the internet is just comparing things that are completely different.
Amazon went down 92%. 92% in 1 year. From 2001 to 2002, it lost 92% of its value. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean
These
anything.
were all Amazon,
Obviously,
Apple,
Amazon is the most
others.
powerful company on the planet today. So
there were companies who had a business plan that
Yes.
goods and services,
The
real
Bitcoin
income,
is the business
and that
plan.
profit.
It's to replace...
Okay? You have absolutely no business model.
Right.
It's all white papers used to peddle ICOs that are scams, okay? For maybe future goods and services that nobody has ever seen. Come on.
Look,
most of these white papers, as you perfectly know, are a total joke.
The bank takes your money, gives it to me, gives you 1%, charges me 25% on my credit card. They make 95% of the value. 95% of the value. You think that's fair? I mean, what kind of financial system is that? When the average Joe, everybody here, and
crypto
wait, because you know that all of that happened because of the 2008 collapse. You know that the Fed had to lower interest rates. The banks have recovered 20 times since. Why isn't the Fed raising the rates so we can all make money on our deposit? So the banks can make more money? You cannot, Satoshi said that, you cannot fix this system by putting laws or putting better people or whatever. You have to create a whole nother system. And the blockchain is a different system. You cannot measure it with comparing it to what you have right now because it's like an alien. It's a completely different system. Just like the internet was an alien, a completely different system to everything that existed before that. So you need to reset your measurement tapes and all the other things you're measuring, the old economy with the new economy.
Crypto is doing nothing to change the financial system. There are plenty of problems in the financial system, and there is a revolution in financial services. It's called fintech, but fintech has zero to do with blockchain and cryptocurrencies. It has to do with artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Okay,
It's to do.
Forbes,
let me finish.
Yeah.
Okay, it's to do with big data. It has to do with the Internet of Things. It's revolutionizing payment systems are becoming digital. It's revolutionizing credit allocation. It's revolutionizing capital market. It's revolutionizing insurance. It's revolutionizing asset management. As has nothing to do with crypto. In crypto, with Bitcoin, you can do 5 transactions per second. An old-fashioned technology like Visa can do 25,000 transactions per second. But guess what? There are billions of people around the world, in China, in India, in Africa, in the United States, who are using digital payment system, and they're doing billions of transactions per day using Alipay, WeChat Pay, Venmo, PayPal, M-Pesa, UPI system in India. And all these things are happening today used by billions of people, making billions of transactions, and have zero to do with blockchain, zero to do with crypto, okay? That's the revolution is happening right now, is democratizing finance.
All right,
your
all right.
revolution
leave
is
time
making
for
a bunch
questions.
of people richer and scamming most investors.
All right.
That's what your revolution is
the
doing.
reporter
Has
from
nothing
Forbes
to do.
here?
You want to do
person
real,
here?
you want to really change financial services, go into big tech,
Okay,
get a real job.
We said we're going to leave 5 minutes for questions. So I just want to say one thing, and then we're opening up for questions. The Forbes magazine listed, they had over 1,000 fintech applications, and they listed the top 10 fintech solution, not just crypto, whatever. Celsius was voted number 3 best fintech application, okay? So saying that fintech is nothing to do with crypto, I just proved you wrong. Okay, 5 minutes for questions, guys. Anyone who wants a question, come up front because we have to give you the mic.
I have the mic. I have a mic, sir. Hey, I have a mic.
All right.
I want to make 2 points. So first of all, you
Quick,
said
because we have to leave room for everybody else.
yeah, you said that how can there be
Here, you hold it
2,000?
close.
How can there be 2,000 currencies? But if you look at like the coupon system that people
What's your
use,
question? What's your question?
I'm making 2 points to whatever he said. So like everybody,
This
every
is a
company
Q&A.
has their
Sir, question. Do you have a question for me or Nouriel?
Yeah. So I mean, I want to say that how do you justify the coupon system that is also equivalent to cash? That everybody has their own coupons, and that's been around for so long, which is equivalent to cash. So why do you think that you cannot have different currencies to pay for different services? Second thing is, I've been in tech for 20 years, and you mentioned something on the other stage that blockchain is not solving for any technology problems. But I mean, I've been in logistics, and there's a huge problem. I mean, there's no end-to-end visibility on supply chains, and the only way that can be solved is by blockchain. So, I mean, how confident are you that it's not solving for any of these problems?
I'm not sure if I fully understood your question. There was noise in the background. But the reality is in any economic system, there is usually one currency, not 2,000, that has the role of numeraire, of means of payment and stable store of value. In the US is the US dollar. In Europe is the euro. In Japan is the yen and so on. But you don't have 2,000 of them. And by the way, in any system, you cannot have more than one numeraire. Suppose we live in a world in which, in this dream of decentralized tokenization, to buy any different good and service, you have to use a different token. Then the role of the numeraire as a price discovery, so you can compare every price of every good of service to that numeraire. So I know the price of buying this T-shirt as opposed to those pair of shoes that the dollar allows me to do is going to be totally destroyed, because for every goods and service there is a different token that has a different relative price to the price and goods and service of everything else. So you go effectively, you're not in a monetary system. You go back to barter. You go back to the Flintstones. And even the Flintstones, if you watch those cartoons, they had the stone that was the Flintstone dollar. So they knew that you had to have one currency, not having 10,000 different ones. So a world of tokenization is a world of barter where transaction costs become infinitely high. It's just logically doesn't make any sense.
The Flintstones wish they had crypto. Go ahead.
Hi there. Are you, Nouriel, undermining the validation of data in the blockchain space? Because it sounds like everything that you're actually saying is that you're not wanting validity in the blockchain space at all.
So let me take it. So the issue is not that crypto is separate from the dollar. The crypto is just one more currency, right? I mean, I know Nouriel doesn't think of it as a currency, but just like gold is a currency, we believe that crypto is a currency, right?
I get that, but it just sounds like he's saying that
like
there's
our company,
validity.
for example, is building bridges between dollars and yen and euros and the top 20 cryptocurrencies. That's what we're doing, right? We're building bridges so people go in, go out, they can earn interest, they can take loans. So I agree that you need different numerators, not just one. You know, Nouriel is saying you need one. I'm saying there could be 100. Right now, there's at least 200 on the planet because each country has its own different currency. So the issue is really about, is cryptocurrency another numerator? And you don't need 2,000 of them, but we don't know which one is going to win. Just like when we started the internet, we didn't say, oh, we're not going to do Amazon because they're just going to sell books. Who needs that? Who needs to buy books online? You know, I could just go to, to a store around the corner. So the issue right now is the central bank backed currencies versus things that are run by a computer system that are designed based on an open protocol, based on open blockchain and open public ledger.
I just make the following point. Speaking about cryptocurrencies is a misnomer. These are not currencies, they are not money. The definition of money is something that is one, a unit of account, and single numeraire for all goods. So you cannot have thousands of numeraires. Doesn't make any economic sense. It creates barter and chaos. Two, has to be a means of payment that is scalable. Three, has to be a stable store of value and have a stable purchasing power over goods and services. Based on these three criteria, neither Bitcoin, let alone any other, unquote, cryptocurrency, is a cryptocurrency. It's not a currency. It might be a commodity, it might be anything else, but calling it a currency is a joke.
All right, next.
Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions.
Question is for Nouriel, who says that we should have only one currency. If that's the case, why is it that we don't have only one religion or one language or something like that? Why do humans have different religions, and within one religion, multiple versions of the religion, multiple languages? 50,000 languages, close to 800 plus religions. Why can't we have 50,000 coins?
It's for the same reason why there are network externalities and economies of scale in many internet applications. For something to be used as a money, first of all, you need to have a single numeraire. If you have multiple numeraire, the price discovery mechanism is broken down and you're back to barter. That's why in any economic system, usually one currency becomes the numeraire for all goods and services. Two, for doing transactions in a way that is efficient and low cost, you cannot have thousands of currencies. There are economies of scale of me using $1, giving you $1, and taking $1 from you to buy other goods and services. If we had dozens of currencies, I would have first exchange my dollar into something else in order to buy your goods. That's going to be very costly. And we do have a stable store of value that has stable purchasing power. In every society, by definition, there is usually maybe multiple currencies, but those that are bad currencies, that are unstable currencies, that are unreputable currencies disappear, and one currency that is credible, that is stable in value, dominates. There are massive economies of scale existing in money. That's what the externality of money is. That's why the idea of having hundreds, let alone thousands of currencies is nonsense. Has never happened in history. It's not going to happen this time around.
So Nouriel, I'll hit you with your own numbers. In the last 200 years, the average cost of transaction, financial transaction, represented between 2 and 3% of GDP. 2 to 3% of GDP every year is going to waste so the guys from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and all the big banks can fly their private planes. Okay? FinTech could do that for 1/100th of the cost, including Bitcoin. Bitcoin today can do a financial transaction around the world for 1/100th of the cost of what Goldman Sachs charges. So, and the issue is, and it runs like Stellar and some other platform run at 1 million transactions a second. There's no problem of speed. So the issue here is really that the monopolies and all the rules, all the laws that are written to protect these monopolies, the guys at the top of the pyramids, the financial pyramids, who are running the pyramid schemes in this world, those guys are just protecting their monopolies and making sure that they extract 2% out of all the transactions on the planet. Next question.
Transaction costs in the crypto space are going through the roof. If you're measuring it by minor revenues per number of transactions, they're going to the roof. They're not falling. They're rising. They're higher than formal financial systems.
I don't know where you got those numbers, but we can talk about it afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay. Question for Nouriel. How do you feel about current banking system completely failed 3 to 4 billion people in the world? And second question, how you define top 3 values of banking community?
Listen, I'm an expert of financial crisis. I was one of the few economists who predicted the global financial crisis. I've been very critical of the financial system, and I think that there is a revolution in financial services, and we have to change it to reduce transaction costs. And as I pointed out, that fintech revolution has all to do with AI, Internet of Things, and big data. Is revolutionizing payment system, credit allocation, asset management, capital market activity, insurance. And 99.9% of this space has nothing to do with Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, or blockchain. So I do believe in competition. I believe that fintech is going to completely change financial services, bring it to the poor, bring it to the unbanked. But I'm sorry to say, you want a job, go into real fintech, don't go into blockchain.
Ooh. All right, next question. We have 2 more questions.
Hi. Here? I'll stand. All right, so everyone's asking Nouriel. I want to ask Alex something.
Closer to your mouth, just like the rappers do, you know? Touch your mouth.
Like this. So I want to ask Alex, because most of the questions are for Nouriel, the crypto skeptic that's here today. The stats show that about 1% of all the addresses control 90% of all the Bitcoin. So when we're talking about wealth distribution, Nouriel was speaking about it. So the data actually backs it up. So where's the democratizing of finance? Like, it seems even worse than what we have today in the current system.
That's a great question. And I want to dispel what Nouriel said, right? So again, the problem is who's getting it. It's not the concentration, but who's getting it, right? So the issue with blockchain is, Bitcoin specifically, right, is that all the people who participated, none of them were the people at the top of the pyramid, by definition. I did a speech on Wall Street just a few weeks ago where 250 heads of banks, right, the compliance officers, the CEOs were there, and asked them the question, okay, how many of you hold cryptocurrencies? Not one hand went up. Not one hand went up. So by definition, all the money, all of this 280 billion that currently is the market cap of cryptocurrencies went to the people at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, separate question, is it concentrated or not? Yes, it's extremely concentrated because we don't have enough users, right? When you get to have 200 million users, it's going to get less concentrated. To give you an example, the largest holder of Bitcoin is, who's the largest holder of Bitcoin? It's not me. Satoshi, exactly. Satoshi holds almost 11% of all the Bitcoins on the planet. Do you know that he did not transacted? Only one transaction at the beginning of the chain was taken from one wallet. He has 10 wallets. One wallet, one transaction ever in the history of those. So saying that those are concentrated positions belonging to some billionaire, no. Yes, Satoshi is worth 10 billion, but he has not transacted once, meaning those coins probably will never be transacted. So when you look at a total supply of 21 million coins, there's probably 15 to 16 million coins that are transacting. The rest of them are not transacting. 3 million coins were lost forever. A bunch of coins with Satoshi, and you can reach this number. So you have to exclude the top coins, the top wallets that are not transacting at all, because I don't think these are stupid people that don't sell anything or don't send anything or don't buy anything, right? Those are just not part of the system. When you exclude those, then our distribution, the Bitcoin distribution, looks much better than the United States of America. And in 10 years, it's going to look 100 times better. It's going to look better than Europe. Okay, or better than any other country, a socialist country.
It's worse than North Korea today. Worse than North Korea.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's the reality.
Next question.
So I want to ask about stable currencies that the financial markets talk about.
Touch your mouth. Touch your mouth.
The financial market talks about these stable currencies, and you have the U.S. dollar, which lost 99.2% of its value. You also have gold, which has gone from 1/32 of a dollar to almost 1/2000th of a dollar, and they explain that these are stable, and they're not stable at all. They've lost purchasing power of ridiculous amounts, which have been taken away by people at the top. Bitcoin is worth 1 Bitcoin, and the people at the bottom still have the same purchasing power relative to the Bitcoin itself, as an example. So what is going to be done about that?
The average cryptocurrency has lost 95% of its value in the last 9 months, okay? That's the reality.
Answer his question.
95% of its value.
Go back 2 years and you're wrong. Continue on.
Compared to the dollar, the dollar lost 99.9% of its value against
beginning.
Bitcoin. Like you
Bitcoin
said,
is still up over
Bitcoin is still
10,000.
a
The dollar
Bitcoin.
has gained 80%
A
of its
Bitcoin
value
is
relative
still
to
a
Bitcoin
Bitcoin.
in the last 8 months. Okay, so
Against the dollar, you have a numerator now. You have a numerator.
the
Nouriel, you gotta stick to your rules.
are collapsing. They've lost 95% of the
And
value
it's still-
in 9 months.
It
In 9
still
months.
has 99.9% better than the dollar.
No, there's still 99% way to go towards zero. Towards zero.
Hi,
99% of them are worth zero.
Next question. Go
I
ahead.
have the last question. Thank you. Hi. So right
it.
now, if the model is that this is going to bring,
We can't hear you. You gotta touch your mouth.
if this is going to bring power back to the people and it's accessible and it's not about the elite, what's being done? Because right now, a lot of the people in this room are a tech elite, right? So the average person in Ohio or Indiana is able to access this from an investment perspective. So what's the model to actually make this more accessible for the everyday person, the mom and pop, to actually benefit from this?
It's a great
The-
question.
The everyday schmuck who bought the peak lost 70% of his assets when they bought the peak. Because the whale sold to schmucks were retail investors who came in, like in any bubble, at the peak and lost 80% of their value. That's the reality of it, okay?
All right, I'll repeat the question for those who didn't hear it.
I don't even hear what's
All right, the question was the question was for people who are not technical, who don't have the opportunity, like most of the people here, who did not get in on it because they were tech savvy and so on. How do they participate? How do we make it easier for them to come in? Right? Is that the question? Yes, I agree. I'm part of the tech elite. Okay, I wrote 50 patents. I did 7 companies. I look at my kids. None of my kids want to be tech, whatever, entrepreneurs. You know, they look at me like it's good for you, not good for us. And I agree with you. I think I have 6 kids at home, right? And I'm like really worried about it. And part of why I'm doing this is because looking at them, I'm saying, if you're not a tech genius and you can invent the next big thing, or you have some connection on Wall Street and you can go and become the CEO of this or that bank, you don't have any chance. You don't have any chance, right? And you don't speak Chinese and you don't speak whatever, one of the 800 languages in India, you don't have a chance. So the beauty of and you're right, I mean, we do have to make it much easier. For example, in our app, we implemented a feature like Venmo, like PayPal, in which you don't need an address. You don't need a hash address to actually send money to somebody. You can send with an email address. You can send with just a Telegram address and so on. So the industry as a whole has to solve this problem of making the user interface easy. When I wrote Voice over IP, in the beginning, you had to put a TCP/IP address of the recipient, and he had to have the software that you have to be able to make a connection, just like we have today. So all technologies start in a very, very difficult user interface. Today, you want to make a VoIP call, you click on somebody's picture, and you can make a voice communication with them or video communication with them. So again, that took 20 years. 20 years. It sounds crazy, but that's what this stuff takes. Financial systems are even harder because the internet was mostly about information and data and so on. And those things are easier to solve because they're not as regulated as financial services. Financial services, everything you want to touch, some regulator all over the world in 107 different countries has to tell you it's okay, you can do that. And that usually takes 12 or 18 months. Look how long we're waiting for an ETF. It's been 10 years, we don't have an ETF, right? So fintech is going to take longer, but the impact is going to be 100 times bigger. I said this several times, that the largest companies that come out of these type of shows and these type of events are going to be bigger than Apple, bigger than Google, bigger than Amazon or anybody else, because it touches all the money on the planet.
Yeah,
thank you for
Alex.
coming.
Big round of applause for our speakers, Alex and Nouriel. Thank you very much.